Lifestyle by Design. I'm your host, Margaret Wiltshire. And today I have a very, very, very special guest. I am super, super duper excited to have him on because this is the man, and I credit him with literally nursing me back to health, getting me healthy, and getting my son better, who was really sick. I have so much love and respect for this man. Garcia, welcome.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you. Thank you. Very happy to be here.
I'm so happy that, you made the time to do this, because I feel that the information that you have and what you do, everybody need it. Everybody needs to hear it, and they need to know it. And I was on a journey, I was sick and I was at near death's doorstep. Pretty much that's what I thought. In fact, you told me that I had the internal workings of a really beat up 56-year-old woman.
Right.
So everyone needs to hear what you have to say,
I would hope so.
So before we start, I wanted to ask you, before I ask you, you were a fashion photographer.
I was in beauty photography. A little bit different.
Okay, beauty photography.
So the difference is, for anybody that may be interested, fashion involves primarily clothing, putting models in front of a camera and photographing, let's say, a line of clothes. Whereas in beauty photography, the gentleman that I worked for was a very well-known beauty photographer. You specialize primarily in features. So you would do an ad, let's say, for Revlon, and you're photographing the face with makeup. That would be beauty, as opposed to, let's say, fashion. Got it? Very simple.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So what led to nutrition?
I think a number of concerns. I came up in the 1970s, and there was a revolution going on at that time. People wanted to know more about human consciousness. There was the human potential movement, the onset of very powerful workshops like Inside Out, self-actualizations, and the beginning of the holistic health movement. So people were getting very interested in other options besides using conventional medicine. What was the role of nutrition? What was the role of exercise? What about unique thinkers that were recommending other ways of taking care of oneself in terms of stress through meditation and so on? So this captured my imagination, and I got very interested first and foremost in running and long distance running. And running became a part of my life in the very early 1970s. That led to my racing in the 70s, and I did my first New York City Marathon in 1979. So although I was involved in a very different world, I was changing. My conscience was changing very dramatically, and I was being very affected by how diet could impact how you felt, fasting could impact how you felt, how running, which would give you a very measurable effect on your mood, on your energy after an hour run, that you couldn't get from anything else. So bit by bit, incrementally, I went through many stages, and I wanted to know how anything that I did could affect the quality of my life. That's how it began, in a very, very mundane, very banal way. I just wanted to run.
Okay. Now, how did you get into making what you're learning about? When did your curiosity peak and say, you know what? Maybe curiosity is the wrong word there. Your desire to share what you were learning with other people.
I think, like many individuals, once I tried it, and I found out that eating in a certain manner, I became a very strict vegetarian for a number of years in the mid to late 70s. Being a long distance runner, I wanted to convert the world. there wasn't anything else available. There wasn't Juice Generation, there wasn't Juice Press, there wasn't the internet, there wasn't cell phones. There was just one-on-one communication. There was the Hippocrates Institute, there was macrobiotics. So you could go do workshops, you could do courses, and I would embody a lot of this work, and it affected my thinking, my way of performing in the world, and I wanted to share this message with everybody around me.
So this actually was pretty new and a bit unconventional at the time, I can imagine.
Very, very much so.
So when you made the decision that you wanted to share all the great things that you were learning with others and make them healthy, and like, what was that like for you? I'm sure that was a bit challenging, maybe frightening.
I felt like a Martian.
Okay.
If all of a sudden you go out and you run Central Park and you would do 6 miles in an hour, and the profound impact on your mind, on your mood, on how you felt the rest of the day, would then open up your curiosity about food. If running can affect me this way, what about what I eat? Could anything that I eat affect me in just the same way? How I sleep. So the running itself was a portal to many other questions, about anything that I involved myself in. And I was on my own path. I don't think there were too many people asking these kinds of questions back in the 1970s. So I kind of had to go off on my own. And I think many people found it to be kind of strange, who runs an hour, let alone who runs a marathon. And yet every time that I would step in that direction, let's say this alternative world, it would open up greater curiosity about people that were thinking back then, specifically about any of these things that were not very well known to most people. What people ate back then was the typical Western diet. And I found that drinking 4, 5, 6 cups of coffee a day was very damaging. I didn't know that before. I'm Cuban, but I would drink that much coffee. Drinking soda. There were maybe 2, 3 health food stores in New York, and Whole Foods was decades away. There wasn't an Equinox, that didn't exist. You had a local fitness club, and bit by bit, by shopping at some of these health food stores, and by going to these local gyms, I started to get into communities where people thought like I did. And I picked up books by Michio Kushi on fasting, on macrobiotics. I picked up books on fasting by different individuals that were very well known back then. And I would try it all on. I would see what it would do for me. So it was a very, I would say, solitary journey. There weren't a lot of people doing what I was doing. And I think a lot of people thought I was kind of flaky, but here I am. Back then it was very novel. Now it's very common. I mean, to get into the New York City Marathon now is impossible. You have to qualify in so many ways, but back then, you just kind of registered and showed up and did it. And I did a multitude of them, but they kept opening up my curiosity to the point that I wanted to do this full time. And that's pretty much how it began.
Okay. So I have a question for you before we jump into health questions, because one of the things I love to share on my podcast is you're very successful. And I love to share people's journey. Now, you were a visionary. You know, you were back there, you just said people thought you were flaky. You were living this alternative life and doing weird things,
Correct.
things that they'd never heard of. You know, to them, the world was still flat. You were somebody saying, here, the world is round, come see.
Correct.
You know, how did you make your vision come true for having a thriving practice? Like, what were some of the, so here's another question. What
Sure.
were some of the obstacles that you encountered, and how were you able to hold on and say, yes, I'm going to make this happen and I'm not looking back?
There's a lot of literature now that you can reference that would explain my conduct back then. I would say, for instance, if you read anything by Malcolm Gladwell, for instance, Outliers, I felt I clearly was an outlier. And in order to kind of qualify for that, just like he writes about in his book, you had to put in a certain amount of time, what he called the 10,000 hour rule, where you would dedicate a certain amount of time in order to become proficient at it. So I was just persistent. I wasn't going to stop pursuing what captured my imagination. It would just drive me further. And there were people that I thought were remarkable thinkers back then that were outliers themselves. But every time that I would try something new, for instance, trying water fasting or juice fasting or colonics or massage or sweat lodges. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but every time that I would try something new, it would add to this kind of body of intelligence that I hadn't had before. It was kind of like listening to Jimi Hendrix for the first time. Well, nobody had ever played that way before. It just didn't exist. And the first time you put on Are You Experienced and you heard Purple Haze, it just blew your mind. So it was similar in terms of everything new that I would try. If all of a sudden you would go run and you would run 30 minutes and then you would run 45 and then you would do an hour, the biological experience, the way that you would think, the way that the world would look would be so remarkably different. It was nothing like I'd experienced before. So that would drive me further to study in an environment that was very impoverished insofar as alternative medicine or holistic medicine. And it was just beginning to bubble up. That was the right time. The 70s was the right time.
Question for you.
Sure.
How come you chose it? What is it about holistic and alternative that appealed to you?
I think how I felt. I think you can reduce it to a number of elements. How I felt was central. How clear my moods became. How fasting, for instance, improved my sleep, the way that I thought. The fact that it cleared up my anxiety, my depression, my apathy, how much more productive I became. So these were things that I couldn't find reference for, except that when I would do them, I just felt that I had achieved something so uniquely different that many people didn't know about. You couldn't go out and yell about it in the streets, but you could go through it. And there were enough courses and workshops back then that when you would participate and do them, they just empowered you further. And so eventually it occurred to me that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So it was a lengthy period of time. It was, a number of years, getting adjusted, getting massage, getting chiropractic, these, getting Rolfed. These were things that were very unique to that era. And I just kept wanting to try the next thing. Let's find out what the hell that is. What's Rolfing? What's Shariva? What's that kind of coursework? What is any one of these things? And since I was very curious and I wanted to expand my conscience, I would just jump in, without any questions. I'm sure I did a lot that in retrospect would be considered nonsense, but most of it really turned out to be a learning experience. It just added to the learning curve, and it showed me how little people really understood what it meant to be a human being.
So now I'll go into some health questions.
Sure.
And I'll share a little bit with the audience about how I came to meet you.
Okay.
Really quick. My mom was diagnosed with cancer, I think back in 2011. My aunt, who I was very close to, died in 2012 in Canada. And I was like probably the youngest person in my family to go. Well, let me go backtrack.
Sure.
I thought the older people in my family would go to Canada and take care of everything and claim her body and do things that I kind of expected people with more authority in my family would do.
Okay.
And they did not. As it turned out, I was the one who became responsible for crossing the border in a foreign country with different laws in a different language to go claim her body. And I found out that all the older people in my family all had diabetes and high blood pressure.
Right.
My mother also had diabetes and high blood pressure, and she was the only one with cancer.
Right.
So in 2012, when my aunt died, my mother died 6 months after she did. And I was just like at my end. I mean, like I was forgetting stuff. I was off balance.
Sure.
My head was spinning. My hair was falling out. Like it was just weird. Like I literally thought I was going to die.
Right.
And I remember saying to myself on a trip to Montreal on the bus, there's too much information for this to be my future. I just can't be one of those people in my family who have diabetes and high blood pressure. And then my mom adding cancer into the equation. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, what can I do?
Right.
And I was reading this light book on the trip. This book that I thought would be just light reading and fun. And it was called Things My Mother Should Have Told Me.
Okay.
And there's a chapter in there, and there's a chapter on health, and there's a chapter, and within that chapter it talks about two people, one a medical doctor in the UK, and another person, you, here in New York. And as it turns out, not too far from where I live.
There you go.
Who are able to tell us what's going on under the hood of our bodies. And they're able to say, hey, if you keep going on this path, you're going to get diabetes or you're going to get this. And I said, I have to see this man.
Right.
Whoever he is, I'm going to find him. And I Googled you and I called and the rest was history. And when I went to you, you took a full hormone panel, you took a mineral panel, and then you sat down with me and you explained what every single thing meant and how it impacted my body.
Right.
And you looked at me in my face and you said, girl, you're a beat up old 57-year-old woman inside.
Right.
And I was in my 30s,
Right.
and you basically nursed me back to health. And what I loved was that on every visit, it was like a new lesson, a new chapter in health. I mean, you made me read books. You made me go out and buy books. You gave me books. It wasn't just here, take this, do this. It was here, get educated. And that is part of your philosophy. You want your clients to be their best assets for their body and their well-being. And I think that is amazing. And one of the things that I want to share with the viewers is that I kind of thought in some ways that I was doing some healthy things. Like I stopped eating white bread because, white bread has a bad rap. And I was eating wheat bread. And as it turned out, I had a gluten sensitivity, So the things that I learned from you, I always advise people now, go get yourself checked out. Find out what's happening with your body because your body is unique. Find out what's happening under the hood.
Correct.
And one of the things I've encountered, Oz, is that people jump into things, right? I was at a presentation in California and I saw Dr. Amen, who was talking about the brain because that's his thing. Really great presentation. But one of the things he said that was really profound was, people don't see to the brain until there's something that's wrong. And usually at that point, it could be a bit too late. So the things we are so concerned about what we look like on the outside and, if we're slim versus big, but we don't pay attention to what's really happening under the hood, and putting certain things in our body that we think may be healthy could actually be really hurting us.
That's correct. Yeah.
So why is it important for people to see a nutritionist and to find out what's happening with their specific body?
I don't know that you need to see a nutritionist. I don't call myself that anymore. I think what I want, what I would do is encourage people to be educated. In other words, for us to work together, if we were going to work on your health and so on, it was important that we were both speaking the same language. So I don't treat people. I would consider myself an educator rather than a nutritionist, right? And I educate within a certain bandwidth about health and well-being and so on that involves nutrition. So in order for us to talk about you and your concerns or anybody's concerns, there's stuff you need to know. And you don't need to take it from me. In other words, I would like you to go through a kind of micro version of what I had to go through in the time allotted to us. This is who I think you should read. This is the points of view that I think that you should be paying attention to, because they may be relevant to you and your concerns. The diagnostic work is critical so that you have a blueprint, the kind of GPS about your biology, and know where you are and where you're going. So diagnostics, whether it's blood work or urine test or a hair biopsy or conversation, a kind of verbal exam, is all designed in large measure to create transparency, right? So that there's nothing that's mysterious that's going to bite me in the butt later, or you. And rather than thinking in terms of there's a way of eating that's right for you, like vegetarianism or macrobiotics or paleo or lacto-ovo, that I kind of deconstructed all of that, and I wanted to find out what do you need? What are your particular needs when you understand what your biology says? What's your blood type? What's your age? Are you fit? What's your background? What are your genetics? So there's a lot of information that you're vetting in order to come to a conclusion about what should you have in the morning, what should you eat in the afternoons, what should you eat in the evenings. And at root, when you're doing what I'm doing, what you really wind up being is kind of like a micro anthropologist, a micro fitness trainer, a micro endocrinologist, on and on and on and on, so that you're really becoming comfortable with biology, with the biology of a primate, which is what I am, what you are, what your child is, what everybody is around us. We're a certain kind of primate. There are certain things that are right for us as the kind of primate that we are. And we don't live in a world that's native to us any longer. We live in a human created world. And so how you find your way through all of that and navigate your way to find what's most native for you so that you can live in this world is my goal. Because if not, you're going to be affected by what's being pushed or promoted, on media, on what you read in magazines and TV shows and radio shows and people's points of views that I think have nothing to do with you or me. And in the end, I think that unless you're able to think with great autonomy, you will be moved around by I think, commercial forces or people who have, their particular agenda or their belief system that's got nothing to do with your needs or my needs. So unless I get you to read, unless I get you educated, unless I get you to understand what a blood analysis means, all of it, it's essentially putting somebody on a diet, some kind of general understanding of what's good for people. And there's too much to know now. So you really have to be really well educated in order to take care of yourself, because that's what the world demands right now. And I'm in my 60s. If I want to stick around another 60 years, how do I do it? There's a different inquiry that's driving my behavior, my eating patterns, everything that I do, so that I can stay, like I said earlier, biologically relevant and do what I want, what I expect from my body. If I'm lucky, I'll turn out to be right. Hopefully I won't, get cancer or diabetes or get hit by a bus. But on the way there's an awful lot to learn. And health and well-being is an ongoing, evolving, and continually unfolding field. People look at everything from very archaic practices, whether it's Chinese medicine or yoga, to biohacking. And there's so much on the spectrum of what there's to know that you have to open up your thinking capacity. A certain amount of time every day has to be dedicated to thinking about your health and well-being and other things that may be important to you. But in the absence of that, you become unable to actually get why you don't feel well, why it is that the chemistry of certain foods that you're eating harm you, why certain foods make you think better, why certain foods give you stomach aches, why certain foods screw with your moods, and on and on and on and on and on. And it's inside of all of that you develop what I think is, like I said earlier, biological autonomy, a body that responds to intelligence rather than what it wants. I may want a container of ice cream in the afternoon, but what in heaven's name does that have to do with what I need in the middle of the day? And I think that when you can dislodge yourself from those ways of behaving with food, then you actually have a capacity to craft your body, to build your body, to respond in ways that are healthy for you.
That's very interesting. So you called it a body of intelligence.
Correct.
Okay. And this pretty much, has evolved from, so we want to craft a body of intelligence.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. I've never heard that.
And what I would call biological autonomy.
Okay.
Right? So that's a body that is freed up from a lot of what's commercially told to people, and it's built on what you've educated yourself on. And there's a lot to know. And as you can build that body of intelligence, so can you build a body that can respond, I would say, in a timely manner to anything, anything around it. And in the absence of that, you're suffering from whatever you may be suffering from, the needless suffering that people have because they don't eat well, they don't understand the role of sleeping, they don't get body work in the ways that I think people should. And I could go on and on and on, by category. So you need to be facile in so many things, and that's how you build biological autonomy.
Okay. I'm taking notes over here.
Sure.
Okay, so many questions from what you just said.
Sure.
But here's a question. Why is it, I know you just stated that basically the world that we live in today is a human created world.
That's right.
and we don't have to hunt and gather anymore, and there's a surplus of food, whether it's good or bad. But why is it so hard if people know and people have information about eating the right foods and there's so much information today.
Right.
Why is it that it's so hard for us as human beings to break bad habits?
Well, you got to remember what I said earlier. We're animals to begin with. And we're very simple animals. We're complex in one way. We've got a brain, that very few animals have. We have a cerebral cortex, which, as far as I know, we're the only animal that has it. But that brain and that cerebral cortex is in a body that's a primate body. It's a monkey body. We're monkeys all the way out, and so the monkey that we are, the kind of ape that we are, has its appetites, its desires, its apathies, and that doesn't mean that because you can think well that you can regulate your biology. If you could, we wouldn't have one hundredth of the health problems that people have. Most people contradict themselves continually. They know that they shouldn't eat something, then they go and eat it, and that tells you immediately that you're dealing with, a primate. I mean, it's that simple. It's an animal, and it's a predatory animal. We're predators. We're the best predators in the world. There are billions of us. We can eat anything. We're omnivorous. We're predatory. We're apex predators. Nothing comes near us. Maybe a shark. I don't know. But you got to know that appetite, that capacity to eat and consume everything around it was critical to the survival of human being. How we evolved. We evolved in a highly competitive environment where other predators were hunting for the same food we were. So we developed, an ability to hunt and gather under very adverse conditions, probably hungry all the time. And that's what defines a predator. When you look at, I don't know, National Geographic documentary, I mean, what you have is animals continually hunting animals. And that's what's natural, and we're no different than that. We don't live outside of that. So the gorging reflex, the need to eat, is an anticipatory reflex built into our body. What we're thinking is that there won't be something to eat later, so we may as well eat it all now. And it happens in a matter of microseconds. Very quickly. It overpowers your common sense. And we know this from many studies and our understanding of neurology and how the brain works. A feeling to behave in a certain manner can overwhelm good thinking in an instant. All you need to do is read the New York Post. The front pages will immediately tell you how poorly people think. They can't restrain themselves. So why should they be able to restrain themselves around food? People can't restrain themselves simply as a function of being a primate. You're overwhelmed by how you feel. Next thing you know, you ate a big plate of food that you shouldn't have eaten. And as though you knew how to regulate yourself without first understanding that there's a bigger problem. There's a bigger existential problem, which is, how do you function as a primate? And when you don't know that, in the absence of that, you do stupid diets. People do stupid diets all the time, and then they go off diets, and they don't know how to manage their appetites. It's just a complete mistake on how the body operates. So there's a lot to know to get control over my body, to get control over my appetites, of which there are many. And that's why people wind up making, multitude of errors continually, in terms of their habits and practices.
So what would be the first step to learning how to craft that body, the body of intelligence?
I think you need to study. I really do. Whether it's the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, so that you really learn about food, and I think it's a very comprehensive institution where you can learn a lot about human behavior around food and food. Two very different subjects. I think you need to begin somewhere there. I think there's more information now than ever before, where you can get good coaching. There are great programs, other programs, great books, but it is a process of education, and in the absence of doing good reading, and putting together a reading list of what it is that you need to know, you'll just continue to perpetuate your monkey conduct, your monkey behavior.
Okay. That's very interesting.
No, it is. It
really is. It's fascinating because it's almost like our body didn't catch up to our brains.
Very good. Exactly. Exactly. And then to have a brain that can regulate the body that it inhabits, that's a skill, kind of like an art, kind of like painting. Like gymnastics, whatever. It all has to do with how you're training yourself. So to eat well is part and parcel of what you teach yourself, what you're exposed to, what you're learning about how food works. It's all chemistry anyway. You need to know how the chemistry of a carrot affects your chemistry, for the better or for the worse. And you need to know the difference between how food empowers you or how food disempowers you. Where's the place for recreational eating, so that you can enjoy foods that actually entertain you. And there, that's a big subject matter. It takes years to actually get it right. That's why people go on and off diets for decades. And you can watch ridiculous TV commercials for things like Jenny Craig or Weight Watchers or whatever it is. People do this stuff over and over and over, like cattle. There's no thinking going on. They're turning over their thinking to what I would say are very mediocre, very sophomoric ways of behaving with food that don't consider the whole subject matter. What does it mean to be a human being? Why don't we start with that? And then, you don't go out in the streets and say that. It's not like, you're not going to see a TV commercial that says, hey, you want to learn how to eat? Well, we got to start by talking about what does it mean to be a human. Let's talk about, the things that are right for you in terms of, your gender, your age, your baggage, whatever. And when you try to reduce eating to a formula, the reductivist way of eating that you're going to find on TV commercials, let's say for food delivery systems, people are bound to fail, and they do.
Wow. I'm completely blown away. I don't even know what to ask after this. I'm just going to listen to you talk, wow. It's a lot deeper, and
correct.
It makes sense.
At least for me, it is.
It makes sense. To me, it makes sense.
Yes, it should.
Okay.
It should.
Okay. So, okay. I really am like, just speak. Okay. So why would you say it would be important for someone to go get their body checked out? Maybe someone who is feeling, they don't think anything's wrong right now. Would you recommend that somebody, but maybe they haven't had a full, hormone panel or mineral panel done on themselves?
Well, it depends on what a person wants. What do you want? Well, I mean, right now, the evolution is towards something called flow, FLOW, with remarkable thinkers that are shaping the future of human performance. Writers like Steve Kotler, books like The Rise of Superman or Bold. There's so much literature right now on what people need to be paying attention to that will determine your conduct with food. But as I said earlier, what will make you a more competent human being? You could feel good, but what does that mean? Given that there are multiple degrees of what it means to feel good. What is it that you want to achieve? Where do you want to wind up? And so it's inside that inquiry that will determine much of what you do on a day-to-day basis with, like I said, with food, with sleep, with exercise, on and on and on and on and on. And that's what's important to me. So I don't reduce anything. Everybody's unique. Everybody has their own unique life pattern. Everybody's got what's going, there are generalities. I would say, for instance, eating a lot of sugar is bad for everybody. But then you get very specific in terms of what's going to specifically work for you better. And that's different than what's going to work for me. We're gender different, we're age different, we're, ethno different. And all those things will determine what's going to work best for us at any point in our day. And I think that you got to get up and above what most people are saying is good for you. You got to find out what's good for you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I have to share with you also, I went to an event. My friend had invited me to a breast cancer awareness event for women at a church. And after they, did this whole breast screening and what you can do at home and, where you can go if you need help, this woman came on and she was working with a multi-level marketing company. And she just started to pitch the food, whatever it was they were selling. And I was sitting there after having been one of your clients, and I couldn't sit there. And, there was nothing bad or anything, but I just felt this message in me to share with everyone in there that they need to go find out, what's happening in their body. Because there were a lot of people there who were sick. A lot of people had questions and they were sick and they had some serious ailments. And I asked my friend if I could just get up and talk to them. And basically, what I had to say was, go find out what's happening in your body before you put anything into it that you think could be healing. Find out what works for you and what doesn't. And that's because I went to you, and it's because it's so true. I think that everyone's unique. Correct. And you need to find out what's happening in your body.
That's correct.
So, what I'm gathering now is really, if anyone, let's say, is interested in health, maybe they're thinking about starting a new diet or doing something new. Maybe they should get educated first about the human body and creating.
Look, there's any day that you pick up the New York Times bestseller list, you're going to find a great variety of books on health and well-being and nutrition. You can start there, but the point is you got to start somewhere. And once you start on this journey, it should provoke you to look at the next thing and the next thing and so on and so forth, so that you start putting together the elements. You start building the habits, the practices, the conduct that will move you towards having the body and health that you want. And it's there. It isn't the cookie cutter thing. I no longer advocate broadly anything. No, it's like I said. It boils down to what's going to be unique for you as an individual, and begin really by it's almost like you said, being at a class on breast cancer, No, and you're in a room with people that are clueless. They're clueless, so that somebody selling a multi-level marketing product can grab their attention, and that's just too bad. But that's the way it is, everywhere. It's not only there, but it's everywhere. America is in the middle of a terrible health epidemic. You have an immense amount of obesity as a problem. You have problems with diabetes that's out of control. Alzheimer's is on the increase. We're coming to the end of the epoch of antibiotics. It's estimated that by 2050, no antibiotic that exists now will have any effect any longer.
Wow.
And nobody is really preparing for what's next. What kind of future is that? So what's driving health and well-being isn't what concerns people. What concerns people is what makes them fat or skinny. That's about it. It's very black and white. If I eat that, will it make me fat? If I eat that, will it make me skinny? So we've taught people to be somewhat zombie-like in their inquiry, and you have a population of people that are continually going on and off weight loss diets. They're no longer thinking about the property of anything that they consume at all. And so you have, America, a very ill nation, and it will continue to get worse. You have an enormous amount of products that are introduced yearly that don't do anything good for people, other than that they offer greater sweetness or crunchiness or whatever, right? So to the tune of 20,000 products per year. Some make it, some don't. But you don't see TV commercials for putting together a comprehensive, non-GMO diet that will provide stability, clarity, good bowel movements, probiotics, things like that. It just doesn't exist. And what does exist is a highly handicapped food industry. The big marketeers have already taken over people's common sense. You can't sit in front of a TV set and not be affected by a TV commercial that's asking you to buy something that does nothing good for you at all. You got a little 2-pound brain, and as does everybody, and you got billions of dollars being spent every year on trying to make you buy stuff that does nothing good for you. Probably makes you ill. And so it is a multifaceted problem. You're taught to think in very small ways about food. And so it's a big challenge because it's not getting any better. Most doctors don't address these concerns. It's not on their mind. What's on their mind is the latest medication to give you, whether it's good for you or not, and if you look at a physician's desk reference, PDR, a third of it is all about side effects, all the side effects that certain drugs will have. They're trying to medicate most of Americans right now with statin drugs, and in light of the terrible side effects that people suffer when they go on statin medication. And there's a lot of data to indicate that statin medication may not actually protect you from a heart attack.
What is statin medication, Oz?
Like Lipitor, Crestor, drugs like that. The whole point is to control the amount of cholesterol that you produce. And when you're talking about heart disease, you're talking about a multifaceted problem. There are many things that come into play when you're talking about what may give you a heart attack. And it may not only be, your levels of cholesterol. Yet, it's been reduced to that problem and that problem only by most of medicine. Let's put you on a drug that will control your cholesterol, although that may not be the thing that kills you. while you're suffering the side effects of being on any of these medications. So you're up against also some of the greatest marketing firms in the world, and those are drug companies. You know, and so you've got an immense amount to know when you're going to talk to yourself, because you can be swayed very easily. If you're watching TV or you're watching TV commercials, they're just running one TV commercial about medications, prescription drugs, one after the other, without any due consideration on your part, without an ability on your part to judge whether the drug you're going to take or not may help you. And these are immense problems, you know, really immense problems.
Wow, it's so true. And also sometimes people are very vulnerable when they're given a diagnosis, you know.
Well, they are. They are. And so consequentially, you have a country that's, you know, terribly over-medicated. Oh, my mom, who's in her mid-50s, I think she's probably taking 8, 9 different medications. And I have very little impact on that. You know, it's been like that most of her life, certainly before I got into this field. And as a consequence, she suffers. You know, she suffered a lot. And that's life in the postmodern American world. How do you engineer health? Well, it doesn't look like most people are going to do it with either diet, supplements, or exercise. No, it's all about symptom control. You can eat a lot of garbage, a lot of bad food. You know, here, take this drug, and I mean that. You know, without any connection whatsoever. Is my psoriasis, is my arthritis, whatever, related to anything I may be consuming at all? How does that affect my DNA, my genetics? And very few people ask those questions.
Wow.
No, I mean, it took me to ask them, and here I am.
Wow. Am I supposed to talk now?
Yeah, we have a few moments left.
Okay. Yes, I want to be respectful of your time. I'm completely blown away. And I think if anybody, you know, who's looking at this, at whatever point they look at it, whether it's live now or, you know, when you're on later and you're not live, and we're not live, you've got to ask questions.
That's correct.
You know, you've got to ask questions, because I mean, you know, and it's actually so profound, because like we should, but you know, like, how does it affect my DNA? Like, you know, it's, my mom actually had cancer, but the cancer really didn't kill her. It was an aneurysm that killed her. And that was actually from, you know, medication.
Yes.
And I remember my mom, you know, I wanted her to do something alternative. And my mother looked at me in my face and she said, I trust my doctor. He is on my side, was what she told me. He's on my team, was what she said.
That's correct.
You know, and my mother had, right before she passed, I mean, they did surgery. They were treating her with chemo, and the cancer, they didn't even realize that the cancer had completely like spread, took over her colon and a few other organs, and they were treating her like with chemo. Yes. And it was just getting worse. The chemo wasn't working.
Well, you know, just because we live in the time that we live in, I mean, like I said, medicine continues to evolve. At some point within our lifetime, most cancers will be manageable. People will be able to live with cancer throughout their lives and possibly not die of it. We're not there yet. You know, a lot of medicine is still very feudal. The way that people are taken care of is still very barbaric, you know, just very barbaric. And that's just true to the times that we live in. We'll see where medicine is at 100 years from today. We'll see if, you know, what things will be like 200 years from today. No, but you know, 500 years ago, they would have opened the gates to the castle, taken your mom, run into the middle of the woods, left her there with a cross and a bottle of wine, and run back. And that was the way things were done. And now, you know, we're 500 years later, using still some very barbaric means of dealing with cancer, and without ever looking at the possibility that there may be other ways to deal with it.
Wow.
Right?
Yes. I feel like my cup runneth over right now.
There you go.
So I know that you have to get going, but it is a tradition here at Lifestyle by Design for our guests to offer 3 action steps to viewers so that they can start moving towards their dreams. So let's say in this case, moving towards your health or engineering great health for the individual, for you. What would be your 3 action steps?
They're very simple. You know, number 1 is go get a good book. Start reading, get yourself educated. Number 2, I think we all understand the role of fitness. You know, you got to be fit. So no matter what, you got to start working out, whatever that may mean for you. And number 3, I think you really have to expose yourself to great thinking. You know, watch TED. You know, watch TED. Once or twice a week. Listen to podcasts of great thinkers. You know, Tim Ferriss, stuff like that, and so open up your world to what's available in order for you to have the life that you want. And I'd say those are 3 things. You know, I run every day. I'm 65 and I still go out and run every single day. You know,
wow.
and I run and I read something new every day to open up my mind a little bit more. So I would say to anybody watching this show, you got to put yourself in the same process. You know, it's got to be the same thing.
Well, you don't look a day over 35.
Thank you very much.
You look fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Margaret.
You're welcome. Oz, I want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your wealth of, experience with us. Thank you. And I honor you for following that path. I honor you for listening and following that voice within you to do what nobody else was doing at a time when, you were maybe considered like not really an outcast, but, in your words, a flake.
Correct.
So thank you for stepping into that power, for believing in yourself, for being an example, for helping so many people. I mean, you probably wouldn't even know the amount of people you help, because everyone you help is now educated and they can now share some of that information and experience.
That's right.
So thank you. I love you, Oz. I do.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you so much.
Bye, honey. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. This is the video podcast series, Lifestyle by Design. I'm your host, Margaret Wiltshire, margaretwiltshire.com. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, like, share, comment. If there's somebody that you believe will benefit from this video, pass it on, share it. Thank you again for being here. I appreciate your time. I hope this was of great value to you. See you soon on the next podcast. Bye.